In this video, we're going to talk about an extremely important topic that pertains to real estate and short-term rentals. If you have an Airbnb or a VRBO, if you have any vacation rental at all, if you're thinking of getting into short-term rentals, if you're a landlord with long-term tenants and you're going to move those properties into the short-term rental market, you need this entire video. I'm going to teach you about possession, how that possession is defined for non-leased persons, non-tenants, people who stay for only a few days at a time. And then there's other definitions that you need to know that surround the argument of possession. And we're going to use Airbnb specifically and their terms of service so that way you can learn how to apply the definitions of possession. And I'm going to teach you how to extract money back out of Airbnb that they've wrongfully taken from you if you are on that side of the fence. See, I dug into this topic because I have over 100 properties on Airbnb. And every week they take thousands of dollars from me that they should not take from me because I was not able to argue possession the proper way, in a way that the persons who do resolutions at Airbnb could understand it in their terms of service. So you're going to be able to know possession, your legal arguments of possession, and you're going to be able to boil it down into a basic format that you can tell Airbnb, well, your terms of service say X, Y, and Z, and that legally means A, B, and C, so you owe me $1,000. I'm going to teach you how to do that in this video. So stay through the whole video, because section 1 is definitions, and section 2 is how to go to war. And this video is going to be the most important video that you watch this year or next year if you're an Airbnb operator, hands down. So buckle in, get your pen and paper out, and let's go. I've been excited to make this video for you for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to tell you why. First off, you need to know this stuff. 2 weeks ago, Airbnb took $3,100 from me. And if I would have known my legal arguments of possession, I would have been able to explain to the resolution person how legally a guest had still had possession of my home, even though they claimed they did not stay. Airbnb's calendar was blocked for like the whole month. I would have been able to get my $3,100. And now that I'm armed with this stuff, after of course losing tons of money and it being the last straw, I can take them to arbitration and argue that they owe me all of this money. For pretty much every single reservation that they ruled against me in the same fashion, I can go back in. And I'm gonna go pull $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000 back from Airbnb in arbitration because I now legally am armed to. I'm gonna give this same thing to you because it's about you getting paid what you are owed. And even if you don't think you're owed any money at this moment in time, if you're in short-term rentals, knowing possession and the arguments of possession will help you kick people out when they don't pay, help you prevent people from becoming tenants if they're gonna try to squat on you. If you're not aware of this stuff, you may not even know that Airbnb is taking money from you that you're actually owed because you just don't know the legal terms and the legal arguments here. So this is going to save you a ton of money, absolutely going to save you a ton of money in losses because Airbnb makes final decisions on who gets to keep money when it comes to resolutions, but there are legal enforceable arguments here that you can use. So without any further backstory, let's jump into the good stuff. Make sure to like this video now before you forget later, and now is the time to subscribe because we're going into high-level stuff about the short-term rental market, short-term rental industry. I will teach you everything you want to know. Just subscribe and then leave me a message in the comments. I get to see if you're a subscriber. They give me a little red dot that says you're subscribed and ask me to teach you stuff. That's why we're here. So number 1, let's talk about the legal definition of possession. So possession, by legal definition, is to have ownership or control of something. There are different ways to explain ownership and control. See, I bought this coffee, so I'm in possession of this coffee. But in a football game, whoever has the quarterback out on the field has possession of the ball, and they could accidentally turn over possession at any time. See, they have control of the ball during the game, but I think the NFL actually owns the football. So ultimately, within terms of an agreement, control is just as powerful as ownership until somebody with a better argument of possession can come along and try to take that possession. So this in real estate is like the owner, the landlord owns a property, owns a building, and then they lease to a tenant. That tenant then has control. A lot of really rich people, what they'll do is they won't actually own anything. They'll have their entire estate in a trust that they don't own any part of the trust, which means if you try to sue that person, you can't actually get their money because it's locked away in a trust that they don't own. But then they're written in as the person who has sole control over the trust, which means they can do whatever they want with the stuff. They can buy and sell and move cash around within the trust as if it's their money, but they don't technically own it anymore. So knowing that you don't possess something through ownership but can control it is a super powerful variable here too. And I encourage you to research how the rich actually own nothing. It's a pretty compelling topic. But here in this case, you can have multiple layers of possession. So in my world, I do rental arbitrage. A landlord owns a building, doesn't even really own it half the time because he's got a mortgage that he has to pay. So the bank owns the building and then he's got a loan as he's paying off so he can have sole ownership of that building once the bank lien is gone. And then he leases it to me as a long-term tenant, and now I have control within my lease agreement, and then I will give control to people who rent it on Airbnb by the night or by the week. So there are people who have like escalating levels of possession, like escalating rights as well. So a person, when they book your Airbnb, has control of your property. So if they book a month from now, let's say right now it's November, so let's say they book over like Christmas week through New Year's, your calendar on Airbnb gets blocked. That guest who's paid earnest money to Airbnb for that reservation now has control of your property for those dates. So even though they're not at your property yet, regarding those dates, they have control, and here's why. If you go to section 5.2 of your terms of service under hosting, it says contracting with guests. It says that when a host who provides a host service has an ongoing contract with a guest, they are obligated to provide their host services. So now let's back out and teach you the definitions within this so you can make it all make sense. Airbnb considers 2 users on the platform who are in their community, their members. There is a person who is going to buy a service, that is a guest. There's a person who provides a service. Now it may be an accommodation or it may be an experience, but all the persons who are service providers on Airbnb are hosts. And whatever service you provide is a group of things that they call host services. You are providing a house or an apartment or a room, that is considered an accommodation. The legal definition of an accommodation is a room or a series of rooms in which to stay in. So you providing a room or series of rooms to stay in, like an entire home, for example, counts as an accommodation. That location, that specific address, is your host service. So Airbnb's terms of service here state that when a guest has an active contract with you for that location, that you are legally required in the terms of service to provide that literal location, that accommodation. That's your host service. That means that they have control. See, with hotels, it's slightly different. See, a guest can book a hotel online, but they haven't paid money yet, usually, until they check in, unless they get like a super big discount like Priceline, and then there's no refunds because Priceline takes the money. But the guest still doesn't have control of the property of the hotel until they check in, because they're not actually assigned a specific hotel room number. All of you who've stayed in hotels knows this is true. You show up at a hotel and then they tell you, oh, you're in room 5 or room 808, something like that. That's when you have possession and control of the hotel room for the period of time in which you're staying. Hotels have the right to shut down your key after your length of time is over. You don't have legal right or possession of a property when your contract date has ended. So at 11 a.m. the day of checkout, if you are still there, they can just kick you out. They're allowed to remove you. And different states within the United States have different laws on removing people. So what we've covered now is possession does not mean you have to own something, you can just control it. And controlling something can be future tense, it can be present tense. Now, an accommodation is something that you offer as an Airbnb host, and that is your literal property by definition, and Airbnb's terms of service require you to provide that when a guest has an active contract. Because Airbnb's terms of service, if you want to read this again, says it's a direct contract with the guest and you're required to provide the service, and Airbnb enforces that. Next, let's talk about the guest terms of service and how it applies to their use in possession, and if they want a refund, for example, what they have to do to get a refund is next. At this moment, let me stop and tell you something that just happened really recently that's kind of important to my little fishbowl of a world here. Hayley, who runs a majority of my Airbnb properties, you might know her from this YouTube channel, she was involved in an extremely bad car accident. She is okay, she's not heavily injured or anything, but her car's completely totaled, and she had to go to the emergency room and stuff. It was pretty serious, but she is okay. I'm gonna make a post on the community section of YouTube, where I can just post photos and memes and stuff. I'm gonna put more information there. I'm gonna put a link in the description so you can go read that. But without going too long into this video, we're raising money for Hayley. She made a GoFundMe, and any money that any of you, if you love Hayley and wanna help her out, I'll match your donations until all of her needs are covered. So in the community post, let me know if you donate, and I will make sure that the same amount is donated. I'll find a way to track it, even if you don't want to tell me in public that you donated. Send me a message. It's in the description. Go check it out. let's move on. Now, guests also have terms of service that they agree to as well. And there's one main section I want to talk to you about, which is the guest refund policy. If you go through the refund policy, you'll see what qualifies for a refund, like extenuating circumstances, stuff like that. But they talk about something called a travel issue. And a travel issue is the liability where a host doesn't do something right, where the home is actually not available, the photos don't look like they should, like the photos don't represent the property, there's actually a real danger to the guest, cleanliness issues, stuff like that. And this is where a majority of refunds come from. A guest will show up and claim something, and then that guest will get a refund. Refund policy says that there is a travel issue, and a guest wants a full refund. They need to show photos within 24 hours. They have to show photos within 24 hours, and they have to agree to vacate the premise. Now here is where we need to know more definitions. Vacate and premise are the two key words here. They have to agree to vacate the premise. We've already discussed what an accommodation is. It's the property. And vacate, by definition, in regards to property, because we're talking about like an accommodation here, vacate by definition for real property is to return possession. And we already talked about this earlier, that possession includes control. So if a guest wants a refund for a travel issue, they currently have possession of your property, future or present when they have an active reservation. And we now know that if a guest holds their reservation on Airbnb's calendar and blocks your calendar, that they have control of the property. And if they do not agree to vacate and return possession of and return control of your accommodation, they do not qualify for a full refund. So your legal argument here is that the Airbnb guest, if they want a full refund, they have to cancel the reservation and return control of the property. So Airbnb's terms of service for hosts also say that an accommodation is an address and it is represented by one listing. You cannot make multiple listings for the same accommodation, which means you cannot market the same property twice. If you get one person booking your property, you cannot continue to market to find a second person to book your property just in case there's an issue. So Airbnb enforces control when one guest has possession. So your legal argument here to Airbnb, if you ever end up in a situation like I've been in multiple times, if a guest says, I'm not happy with this, and you try to, of course, solve their problem, but they're like, I'm not staying, I'm just gonna not stay. Well, you're gonna have to walk them through this. And I will actually post a couple screenshots here, if I can find them, of messages that I've sent guests. But the two screenshots that I'm showing you of the terms of service for hosts and the terms of service for guests are the photos that you're going to send a guest. And you're going to explain to them, ma'am or sir, I understand you want a refund. Now, we do have a refund policy that Airbnb may override. You're going to need to involve Airbnb and they will mediate a refund. If they agree with you, they will give you a refund above and beyond our own refund policy. But in order to qualify for a refund, you've signed Airbnb's terms of service and they state that you must agree to vacate the accommodation. Now, legal definition of vacate means to return possession of the property, and possession includes control. While you have an active reservation with us, you are in control of our property. We are legally bound by Airbnb's terms of service to provide you this home, regardless of what you're saying to us right now. If you have a contract with us, we have to provide you the home. So if you do not cancel your reservation, you are legally declaring that you intend to maintain possession of our home, which will now nullify any claims for refund in the future. If you want to talk about a cancellation and a refund, if you want to discuss a refund with Airbnb, you are more than welcome to, but in order to qualify, you need to cancel your reservation. We've done this and it works. And if you guys are Airbnb hosts, any of you who are aren't Airbnb hosts, then here's what's up, okay? Let me tell you what's up with guests. Guests, when they want money back, will try to hold your property hostage. So they'll go, oh, there's something wrong with the listing. Airbnb hosts used to be able to go in and immediately fix these things. Now, there is something that you can do here, and this is the argument that I'm making with Airbnb now, is you can go in and immediately fix the problems that the guest, says there are, and you can show Airbnb proof that you've fixed them. And then if the Airbnb guest tries to hold your property hostage and does not vacate the premise legally, by definition, control included, if they keep their reservation, you can show Airbnb, yes, the guest uploaded photos that there was an issue. There was a travel issue at that moment in time. That's their claim. But we just showed you photo documentation that within 3 hours or within 12 hours or within 24 hours that we were able to remediate any travel issues. We're not going to actually state that the travel issue was valid or not, but we showed you proof that there was no travel issue within 24 hours of their claim. Now, the guests never canceled their reservation. They never returned possession of the property. So since they maintained possession of the property, your Airbnb terms of service state that a guest can get a refund of up to 50% of any night that they experienced a travel issue. They only experience a travel issue for the hours between the time that they uploaded photos and the time that we uploaded our proof that the travel issue was remediated. So without getting into a big discussion about whether or not the travel issue was valid, we have proof that the guest maintained possession of our property, and we have proof that there were no travel issues after 2 days of the reservation. I am willing to give this guest a 50% refund for the first 2 nights of their stay, but they maintained possession of my home for the other 20 nights, and thus they are not entitled to a refund for the other 20 nights. Even if the guest says that they did not stay, they still maintained possession and control of my property. And this is what we are presenting to Airbnb when a guest says that they didn't stay for like a 3-week-long stay because they wanted to be a brat and they wanted to force us to give them a full refund. And this will happen sometimes when a guest stays for a few days and then they want a full refund. They won't cancel the reservation because they're trying to hold your property hostage to get you to refund them the days that they've already used. It's fun stuff. If you want real-world advice on how to apply your arguments of possession, put it down in the comments as always. Now, I am not a lawyer. I don't practice real estate law. This is all just from my own personal experiences and my own research. So I'm going to link all the research in the description below, as always. So reminder, check out the community post. Check in on Hayley. She is doing good, but I think I and everyone else who cares about her, it's our time to step up and support her. So. And of course, if you're watching this video a year from now, there's no longer going to be a GoFundMe. It's early November right now. We're going to get this covered in a couple of weeks, I imagine. As always, thank you for being a part of this YouTube channel. It means a ton to me. And if there's anything else that I can teach you, real estate, short-term rentals, Airbnb related, put it in the comments. I will read that. And if I can teach you that, if I can learn it to teach you, I will teach you. Okay? You have my commitment. That's what this YouTube channel is for. So subscribe, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side.